While the whole world was watching Paris last week, far from the cameras, in remote northeastern Nigeria, the Islamist radicals of Boko Haram had overrun the city of Baga, routing the army. How many slaughtered is a matter of debate. The army claims only 150. Eyewitnesses describe streets littered with corpses. More than 20,000 have fled, and that to points west, also to neighboring Chad and Niger. Also alarming, cross-border fighting between Boko Haram and Cameroonian forces, some 260 kilometers away from Baga. Another raid, or is the group powerful enough to mimic ISIS and carve out a so-called caliphate of its own? It's all happening 1 month to the day before President Goodluck Jonathan stands for re-election. Jonathan conspicuously silent on Baga since the attack. Should the election even take place if Northerners are too afraid to go and vote? We'll ask our panel. And finally, what happened to all that international mobilization sparked in the spring by the Bring Back Our Girls campaign? Why can't West Africa's largest army and its neighbors together defeat these jihadists? Today, in the France 24 debate, who's going to stop Boko Haram? With us from Abuja, a blogger and columnist for Nigerian daily Punch, Japhet Omojuwa. Thanks for being with us again.
Thank you for hosting me.
Also joining us, ex-UN General Dominique Trinquant.
Good evening.
And we're also joined by Chad's former Foreign Minister, Ashek Ibn Umar. Nice to see you, sir.
Thank you for the invitation.
And journalist Yomi Oni here in Paris.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
And you won't be voting, you were saying?
I wouldn't be voting.
Because Nigerians abroad cannot
presently,
vote?
Presently, Nigerians in diaspora cannot vote.
All right. The France 24 debate on Facebook and on Twitter are hashtag F24debate. Yes, Baga, a town of 50,000 on the banks of Lake Chad. It was headquarters to a multinational force for the area of troops from Nigeria, Chad, Niger, and Cameroon. Baga devastated by the attack of 11 days ago. On Tuesday, the citizen journalists of France 24's Observers put our team in touch with an eyewitness who'd fled the carnage.
The insurgents came and attacked the area and they killed so many people. I saw about 5 or 6 dead bodies. No, 3 women and 2 children. I used one and a half day, no rescue operation has been conducted.
Japhet Omojuwa, let me ask you, because I'm a little bit surprised, and reassure me here. When we did a trawl of the main Nigerian news websites this Wednesday, we're surprised that there isn't more coverage devoted to what's going on in northeast Nigeria. It was a lot of more election campaign talk. How present in the minds is what's going on there where you are?
Yes, I'm virtually not present. I have to tell you, what you see in the papers is a reflection of the reality on the street. Most Nigerians are not talking about Baga, which is unfortunate. We're used to the bomb blast now. We're used to the killings now. Everybody's practically obsessed about the elections.
And this takeover of Baga, we've seen all these confusing and conflicting reports. What's your feeling on it?
It's just unfortunate that when these things happen, the first thing that comes to your mind is you will never get the truth, because we know over the years that the defense report, the media team from the defense never come out with the truth. They told us lies about the killings of Shekau. Right now, we don't know whether Shekau is dead or alive. I think he's still alive because Boko Haram remains devastating. They told us that the Chibok girls were not kidnapped in April. Then they told us later that the girls had been rescued. Both things turned out to be lies, and several other things that happened over time. And in the same world, they would be in the best position to tell us exactly what's going on. But every Nigerian knows that when the defense media team comes out with an information, an average Nigerian who is sincere enough is first of all looking at the information and thinking, I don't think this is true. And then for the journalists, the local journalists, they don't have enough funding. I mean, insurance, transportation, private jets, moving people around. They don't have enough funding to go really deep into the war-torn areas, to go to the front lines to cover the news. The truth of the matter is Most of us, including those in government, depend on foreign media to find out exactly what's happening. And that's just what it is at the moment.
Yomioni?
Japhet is very correct in what he said in his observation, and it's actually very sad. Very sad in the sense that Nigeria is actually a country rich enough to actually handle its problems. But we have chosen to politicize almost everything, such that the people don't have trust in the government, just as the government has adopted, if I may say, adopted a kind of I don't care policy towards the people they were meant to actually serve. Because how do you have the Nigerian army that has had a record of actually intervening in Liberia, in Syria alone, crushing insurgencies and helping to restore peace in different countries, now being unable to do the same thing in its own backyard? It's really a question that we should ask ourselves. And who's profiting from this insurgency? Because we keep talking about Boko Haram. Boko Haram are not ghosts. How do they get funded? How do they move weapons and heavy machineries from one location to the other? Now we had different countries, Chad, Cameroon, Nigeria, Niger, coming to Paris last year, pledging to form a multinational strike force. It's been a year over. We have no result, if I may say. Things are actually getting worse. Who's responsible for what? And why is it that we are so incapable of actually bringing up a multinational team to actually combat these menace?
All right, we're gonna talk about that multinational team in a moment. First of all, a reaction on Facebook from Usman. This is Nigeria's problem. We will solve it. We just need a more responsible president. That's what we'll give next month. We're coming there. All right, so someone who's clearly not going to be voting for the incumbent in that election. The army, of course, says it's on the case. It disputes the initial toll of 2,000 killed. It insists that the actual toll is closer to 150 and says it's not downplaying the massacre or standing idle.
The United States, France, UK, and so forth, and China offered to support, but most of those supports in terms of surveillance and tactical conversations or advice and so forth and so on. So we need to go beyond that, and that is why the Nigerian government is scouting to purchase weapons and military hardware from across the globe.
All right, so the call there, General Trinquant, is for weapons. That's all that the military at this point needs, and it will solve the problem.
No, I mean, the problem currently is that it is an internal problem in Nigeria. All the other countries, I'm talking about Chad, Cameroon, and Niger, are in fact afraid of what's happening in Nigeria. That's why this meeting happened in Paris, and that's why a coordination was established. But at the end, Nigeria must solve the problem inside its border. And as my neighbor said, why an army like Nigeria is not able, like the Nigerian army is not able to do that? It's probably a political problem. Is that in the north, do you really need to solve the problem in the north while you've got this election in the next days? Don't talk about it. Because anyway, the people in the north are not for Mr. Goodluck Jonathan. So that's probably a way to look at the problem. And to solve the problem against Boko Haram, that's really the Nigerian problem. But now it's the problem of Chad, it's the problem of Cameroon, because they are coming in Cameroon, they are threatening Chad and threatening Niger. And there is a real problem, because coordination is not a coordination of intelligence, it's also coordination in action, which is not happening.
There was this statement put out this Wednesday, Chad offering its services to help Cameroon after that attack that was repelled by the Cameroonian forces in the north a couple of days back. And what's surprising a little bit about the statement is that Chad offering its services to Cameroon, it's almost to follow up on the point that Dominique Trinquant was making. It's as if Nigeria is not part of the answer at this particular point in time.
Thank you. One of the greatest obstacles on the road to coping with this insurgency, Boko Haram now in Nigeria, and a few years ago we faced the same situation in Chad, in Sudan, Mali, Niger, etc. It is the lack of confidence between the head of states. There is a real problem of mistrust between Chad and Nigeria.
So talk us through it, Ashek Ibn Umar, when this summit took place back in April.
Yeah.
What did you think would happen as opposed to what's transpired since?
Well, some Nigerian newspapers and even some Nigerian officials have pointed a finger towards Chad as an indirect support to Boko Haram. And one of the Nigerian politicians suspected of being the godfather of Boko Haram used to be the friend of President Deby. We call him under the acronym of SAS. It is Senator Ali Seni, who is former governor of Borno State, and he who has investments in the oil sector in Chad, and who is a crony of the Chadian regime. Besides, there has been talk that some of the weaponry that is used by Boko Haram come from Chad, not necessarily from the army, but through smuggling or black market. But there is some indication. In conclusion, there is a gap of confidence between Chad and Nigeria. In the same way, there is a lack of confidence between Cameroon and Nigeria. You add to that, to say nothing of Bakassi, who didn't go down very well with the Nigerian.
Yeah, that border dispute,
now,
but that was a long time ago, that border dispute.
You remember that after the International Court has given the right on Bakassi to Cameroon, and the government of Nigeria has accepted it, the Nigerian Senate rejected the agreement. It took a long time before they accepted it. And up to now, in the Nigerian constitution, Bakassi is part of the Nigerian territory. But they, have a trick of creating a new village and calling it Bakassi on the undisputed side to, avoid the further problem. So you add to that the fact that there is no common structure. Nigeria and Nigeria, and Niger, they belong to the ECOWAS,
right.
The African
West African states body.
Chad and Cameroon do not belong to
Central
They belong to Central Africa, to which Nigeria and Niger do not belong. And Libya belong to Niger, and they are facing the same problem. So there is a real problem of coordination between. In conclusion, I may say that it is, ideal for Nigeria to cope with their own problem. Nigeria is the greatest army in Africa, the greatest economy. One African out of 4 is Nigerian, but it is not possible.
All right.
Regional cooperation is not possible. So the only way right now is to, have the cooperation with France and NATO and the international community at large. That is the only way right now. Maybe in some future we can have, some force of
So wait a minute, Ashek Ibn Umar, just like Jafet was telling us earlier that Nigerians are more trusting the Western press to go report on the story, you're saying that Africans are more trusting on the West to come and help out militarily?
Well, it is sad to say it, but the reality is that they need a lot of work together, to overcome all these obstacles and then to build a real confidence and real cooperation and integrated military and security action in the region.
All right,
it takes time.
Let me just read a comment from Derek on Twitter. A continental alliance of willing states must join together militarily to combat Boko Haram. Nothing else will do. He thinks the answer comes from Africa, Dominique Trinquant.
Yeah, certainly, but the Western country try to push the African together and organize this coordination. But as you said, there is no confidence between the head of states, first thing, and probably no confidence between the armies too. So you know, Baga was supposed to be the place where the multinational force was. In fact, there was no multinational force. There were only Nigerian. And the intelligence cell where you are gathering the information are in fact in Jamena and not in Nigeria, because nobody has confidence in order to share the intelligence at that level. And so this coordination is not working, and that's why probably Chad now is turning back to Cameroon and say, let's organize something together. If we can't work with Nigeria, then work together. Because as you know, Cameroon, Chad, the road going from Douala to Chad and to Car is of major importance. And currently, Boko Haram is threatening this type of line, logistic line. So there is a real need to establish a safe area in that region.
And one of the things, we've seen reports that Nigeria's Air Force has underperformed in the fight against Boko Haram in the last 2 weeks.
And on the contrary, Cameroon last week used his aircraft for the first time and was able to take over a place which was taken by Boko Haram. Yes, there are a lot of problems in Nigeria, and I'm not convinced that the Nigerian government wants to defeat now Boko Haram.
Jafed Omojua, is there a sort of a callous calculation that, well, we'll deal with Boko Haram once the election is passed?
It's very difficult not to look at Boko Haram and not think about the political side to this question. Because now the elections are coming. If the bomb blasts are sustained, then it makes it difficult for a certain part of the North to vote. If it is difficult for a certain part of the North to vote, a certain presidential candidate gets to lose elections from his base. So yes, it's a valid question.
On this point, Yomioni, the Northeast, people there, they will not be voting by the sound of it. The head of the Independent National Electoral Commission saying Monday it'll be impossible to hold the election in all areas of the 3 worst affected states.
That is where you would have to ask ourselves the question, what exactly is this election all about? This is a democracy. It's supposed to be the representation of the people. Now, if a part of the country is not voting, how will the eventual winner, whoever it may be, legitimately tell people in Borno State that, hey guys, I am your president, minding the fact that they didn't have the opportunity to vote? And not because they didn't want to vote, but for the simple fact that constitutionally the government has failed in its duties, which is to protect the lives and properties of the people. So if these people are not voting, whoever wins is actually, to me, it's a farce. It's not really an election, because like a third of the country is really off. And back to what the former Minister of Foreign Affairs in charge said concerning confidence, I want to say something. In the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, we had the ECOMOG group taking care of the problems in Liberia and Sierra Leone. They were able to come together through the ECOWAS structure. I would say the foreign intervention or the foreign plodding was actually very limited. How come we are not able to do the same thing right now? I fully well agree the fact that Chad and Cameroon don't belong to the ECOWAS, but for the fact that
there should be coordination. We're going to pick up.
Boko Haram is a common menace to everybody.
All right, we're going to pick up on that point when we come back. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.